Today's event came about because there's been some potential tip-offs of Australian lungfish sightings in the Tuntable Creek. Ozfish came involved because we use eDNA technology and that allows us to actually test for the presence of lungfish. It would be a massive deal for the place and can potentially lead to a whole lot of conservation action taking place in this waterway.
We've been working a lot down here on the creek doing riparian regeneration work, and then the floods really put a dent in that and damaged some of our work, but we've been coming back down and persevering. After the floods, one of the local chaps reported what he thought was a lungfish in the creek, and it was a very clear description. So I asked some questions on the social media and we had another response from somebody who also had a very solid sighting in the same creek at the Channon. We looked at the possibility of testing, or at least trying to investigate whether it was possible that we might have lungfish here.
Well, we had a few credible sightings reported on social media, and Jeff sort of pricked his ears up and thought, well, you know, we can't ignore that. So
the group sort of expressed an interest that they wanted to investigate further the sightings that had happened in the creeks here for lungfish. So I actually reached out to Ozfish, who we work closely with, to see if they might have the capacity to support us in doing some eDNA testing.
So eDNA just stands for environmental DNA, and that just distinguishes it from DNA used in a medical or a forensic setting. But the technology really works in a very similar way. So just like at a crime scene where we see who's been lurking around the place, we can do the same thing with animals, because as an animal moves through the environment, it leaves all these traces, so skin flakes, mucus, all the other bodily secretions, and that mixes really easily in the water. So all we have to do is come down, take a sample of the water, preserve it, send it off to the lab, and then they can do some wizardry on it and basically spit back to us if there's presence or absence of Australian lungfish in the creek. The reason we're making a big deal about lungfish potentially being sighted in this area is because they've only been found in 2 rivers in southeast Queensland. They've now been expanded due to a breed out program, but never in New South Wales. At least for 100 million years, there was some fossil evidence from back then. So they're really significant because, as I said, they're really rare, but they're also living fossils. So they're prehistoric creatures that have been around since before the dinosaurs, and they basically represent an evolutionary stage that all land animals evolved from, and they have changed very little from that time, whereas everything else has evolved very far. So they have a lot of unique adaptations because of this. They have a lung, as the name suggests. They can live up to 117 years old. They can get up to about 1.5 meters long. They have enamel on their teeth. They have strange little limb-like fins opposed to spiky fins that fish have. And if you ask me, they're really cute as well. Still, the most important thing you can do as a whole to restore fish habitat is to improve the water quality. And one of the main ways we do that is through restoring all these riparian zones. So all these areas of vegetation you see lining the waterways. And because Landcare has such an excellent knowledge of conservation and great networks with terrestrial land conservation, it's great working with them because we can combine that knowledge with our understanding of aquatic systems, so we can do a lot of good for our waterways. So yeah, while we're down here today, I thought we may as well take the opportunity to also do some water bug surveying. Water bug surveying is a great way we can just get a rough understanding of the health of any particular area. And it just works off the principle that in any area you have all these different types of water bugs, so that can be anything from mayflies, damselflies, water beetles, snails, mollusks, midge larvae, fly larvae, all these sorts of things. They all have different tolerances to levels of pollution, to levels of disturbance, and needs from particular types of environments and particular types of water conditions. And because of a lot of work that's been done in the past to assign each of these types of bugs a sensitivity rating, all we need to then do is come down, survey the area, get as many types of bugs as we can, identify them, tally them all up, and we can do some basic maths which gives us a single indication of what the sort of health of the area is, which is really useful as a standalone metric, but it's also really useful just to compare again in the future with. So we might do some restoration here, see if that improves the quality of the water bug habitat, or potentially after a big disturbance. Like obviously we're in flood territory here, so it can be really useful information.
And there's been a huge amount of excitement around this because it could have some really big implications for the wider community and this environment around here for future funding, and it would be a hugely significant thing if we were to find some. So it was definitely worth investigating, and it really came about from building those connections and our using the local knowledge of the people around here and people working on the land. And Tuntable Creek Landcare does some great restoration, and so that's the beauty of Landcare and working with other environmental organisations like Ozfish. It's sort of creating those conversations and connecting those conversations and networks to create potentially large environmental change.
So the wider community has learnt a little bit about this project through social media. You know, we've attracted some people to come along, and we've done some water sampling and learnt more about the microbiota that lives in the creek, and you know, just those sorts of days where community come together and just spend some time at the creek and learn about what exists down here. I think that would be, you know, a good outcome. And even if we don't find lungfish, hey, you know, it's brought people together and we've had a really nice morning.